Good evening. With the time being 7 o'clock and a quorum of the Board of Selectmen, I'd like to open our meeting for Tuesday, November 9th, 2013. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and then if you remain standing, there will be a moment of silence. Mr. Clerk.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just like to read a proclamation by Governor Deval Patrick. Please be advised, Governor Deval L. Patrick has ordered the United States flag and the Commonwealth flag to be lowered to half staff at all state buildings from sunrise until sunset on Thursday, November 7th in honor of Staff Sergeant Brett Carnathan of Rockland, who died on October 27th, 2013. I'd like to have a moment of silence. Okay, thank you very much. I will read the highlights of our agenda tonight. We'll go, Keith Bergman will read the mail, then we'll have public input and member updates. At 7:15 we have police appointments for dispatch and communications. At 7:30 we have the annual public hearing on property tax rate classification. 8 o'clock we have some updates and some actions to take following the November 4th special town meeting. At 8:15 the town administrator and assistant town administrator for finance and budget have a few items to talk about. 8:45 we will discuss the selectmen's budget priorities, and at 9 o'clock there may be other business, including minutes approval. With that, Keith.
Mr. Chairman, just a few items in the mail packet. One is the announcement of a meeting that will be held this Thursday night, November 21st, from 7 to 9 p.m. It is the workshop presenting the findings of the agricultural planning project that's been conducted by the MAGIC subregion of MAPC. So that's over in Boxborough. Frankly, it's a busy night. I'm going to cover the first hour of that, come back here for a ZBA meeting, which I'll get to in a minute. And at 6 o'clock on Thursday night, the school committee is hosting the PMBC for an update on the PMBC's facilities study. So we had talked about that a little bit on Saturday at our budget meeting.
Is there any sort of hint of what's going to come out of this, which way they're headed with this?
On the MAGIC agricultural project, I've not seen any of the advanced studies. That it's been parceled out to a number of organizations who are acting as subcontractors, working on different parts of it, but I've not seen the study yet, and I'll share it as soon as I get it. Next, there is, just to make you aware, I'm working with our housing authority and with some neighboring housing authorities to see if we can put together what I'm calling a coalition of the willing, to see if there are housing authorities and host municipalities that want to explore how housing authorities in this region can work better together than separately. I've got a commitment, frankly, from MAPC to give that initiative some DLTA, that is District Local Technical Assistance funding, to help study it. It was one of the issues that we've been talking about with our state legislative delegation in recent months, to see if there are ways that we could help out our own housing authority by trying to work more collaboratively with housing authorities in the region. So I'll keep you up to speed on that. Another item that I wanted to bring to your attention is we received a copy yesterday of an application that Omni Properties, that actually 15 Great Road LLC, has filed with the Zoning Board of Appeals for amendments to the plan that was approved for the comprehensive permit approval. That will be heard by the Zoning Board of Appeals on Thursday night to make a determination of whether the request is significant or not. If it is significant, that or substantial rather, that would trigger a public hearing on the proposed on the proposed changes.
That's this Thursday, Keith?
This Thursday at 8.
At 8 o'clock.
At 8 o'clock. It will not be a public hearing. The first step is for the ZBA to make a determination of whether the application in front of them would constitute a substantial change or not from the original. It would, for any number of reasons. It's a different configuration of buildings, locations, the mix, while undefined, would not be all rental. There would be some mix of rentals and owner-occupied. But nevertheless, we are told, because we've asked, whether it would still be possible for the applicant to pull his building permits by February 21. And that's, the answer we've gotten is yes, and our goal is still to get to building permits pulled so that we don't fall below 10%.
I'd be curious to see if they're holding this as a, we'll pull out building permits if you
Well,
help us
we'll
out with
see,
this,
yeah.
with this change.
Yeah.
How did Norton make out with the home rule petition?
No,
Have you
there's
heard?
been no action on those
Not
home
now?
rule petitions. No, I don't.
Are they scheduled at any certain time? Do they have to hear
No,
them?
they don't.
Crazy.
Just because town's asked doesn't mean you ever get the answer yes.
Hmm.
I've had, every year, I had at least, 3 or 4 home rule petitions we used to do in Provincetown, and maybe 1 out of 4 would actually get enacted, so.
You'd think with our senator being the chair,
Of the
we
committee,
might-
you would
yeah,
think.
You would think maybe some
think so.
insight
So
would
we'll,
be helpful.
we'll keep trying on that front as well. That's all I had. I know the chair and their selectmen's, their members' updates wants to bring forward another matter. In my packet, I'll say I have the request from Camp Neshoba for reconsideration of your determination. And the chair wants to address that.
Yeah. So I'll get to that on my turn. I'll turn it over to the members now individually. I know 4 out of 5 of us were at the Apple Smash. I'm sure someone has something to say about that. And we were at Ken's the other night, so I'll leave it up to other members' update on that. Alex, do you have any updates?
I'm not sure that we should be discussing this without an agenda item. And they put it.
What would that be, just so the audience is clear?
To discuss whether we want to consider reconsideration.
All right, I'll bring that up you can counter my points or bring it up after I introduce my thoughts on it.
Well, I don't think it's a proper discussion. I think it's a point of order.
Okay, let's jump into it now. So we received a letter from somebody to reconsider the action that we took when this board voted to approve the private ways for plowing by the town. So there's a request here that Camp Neshoba is requesting reconsideration of the town of Littleton's decision to deny standing of the Camp Neshoba driveway. If you remember, the reason we took it off was because there's an electric gate out there and there's signs that say private property, no trespassing. So they go ahead and say the electric gate is open all winter long and serves as a security measure in the summer months for our campers, ages 4 through 15, and camp staff. The driveway has been sanded by the town of Littleton for many years, and Camp Neshoba requests a continuation. The Seaward family has supported the town of Littleton and the community by donating to the Littleton Reuben Horror Library, Littleton Historical Society, contributing toward the 300 celebration. Member, past and present, president of the Littleton Rotary Club, Camp Scholarships for Littleton residents, and Camp Neshoba tax bases paid to the town of Littleton since 1955. We ask that you reconsider this decision and continue to sand Camp Neshoba driveway this 56th season. Thank you. And that's signed Gene Seward. My thoughts on the matter is that the board made a decision. There's really no, it was 4-1 to continue that with Neshoba being removed from the list, and I think the decision was made, and there's no policy to reconsider and add people to the list. So now that they're off, and it was a decision that you decided, you included with you, Alex, to not include them on the list, so I have a letter prepared here, basically, that I don't think this needs to be reconsidered. We made a decision, and it's up to the board, I guess, whether or not we want to stick to it. So, I'd like to hear from other board members. Alex clearly wants to
Again, Mr.
bring this
Chair, I
to...
believe that this constitutes an agenda item, and that if we're going to decide consideration or not, this person should be afforded the opportunity to appear here while that deliberation is made. I don't believe we're having a proper deliberation if we discuss whether we want to reconsider it. I do believe the chair has the power not to agenda the item, but once it's an agenda, it needs to be posted on the agenda, and the person should be so notified out of respect because they did put in a request for us to reconsider.
Correct. If the board decides to reconsider and to hear them, then we'll have an agenda item. So your thoughts are noted.
I think procedurally, what the board can certainly do, whether an item is on the agenda or not, is decide whether you want it on the agenda.
Right.
So, and it seems like that's what the chair is asking, that you cannot take action on it tonight because it's on, you can't take action to undo
Right.
your vote because the vote stands and it's not on the agenda. The question is, does the board want the matter placed on a future agenda?
That's a great way of summing up. So Alex, I received this request as chair, and you're right, I do have the ability to put this on the agenda or not, and what I'm doing is I'm bringing it to the board, as he said, and asking if we want to agenda this item. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, answer the letter, and I'm fine with it. I don't think there's a need to re-agenda it.
Okay. So, Alex, I know you're going to object to this letter, but let me just read, paraphrase what I propose to return to them. This will confirm receipt of your letter requesting the Board of Selectmen reconsider its decision not to include Camp Neshoba, 140 Neshoba Road, in the list of approved private ways to be provided town services for plowing and sanding this winter as voted on October 21st, 2013. As you know, private roads that are serviced under this policy are required to be open to the public. As confirmed in your letter, there is an electronic gate that denies public access. Additionally, there are multiple signs that state the road is private property or no trespassing, which will discourage public access. Please be advised that the board discussed your request informally at our meeting on November 19, 2013, and generally agreed not to reconsider this matter. The town appreciates the support the Seaward family has from the Seaward family and your past donations from Camp Neshoba. However, these generous donations cannot be considered when determining whether or not private property should be plowed using town funds.
Is that the same letter that's in the package?
No, it's different.
No. So, if that's a general consensus, not hearing just one objection, I will understand that the board does not want to agenda that item. So, Alex, if you have anything else, if you have a new item now that, other than that, you want to bring up? You still have, no, your objection's been noted, your opinion, it's been, you stated it twice, so I'm saying if there's something else under member updates that you'd like to bring up, you still have the floor.
No, I don't have any member updates.
Okay. Jen, would you like to provide any updates?
I just wanted to let people know that Aiden's Playground's grand opening and ribbon cutting is this coming Saturday at 2 o'clock. Everyone is welcome to attend.
As you mentioned earlier, the Apple Smash was fun. Last Saturday? 2 Saturdays. We could go Saturday,
Yeah,
right?
we go Saturday, yeah.
We could go Saturday. Great turnout, raised some good money for the 300, so I had fun. This Saturday is the football team's semi-playoff for the state championship. It's in Westfield State, so anybody that can attend, it's 11 o'clock. Should be a great game.
Yeah, just about an Apple Smash. It was great to see, see you guys outside of meetings. And so, Joe, Jenna, Jim, and I, we had a good time there socially. And Ken Mildren's retirement party was last Friday, and that was another opportunity where Jenna, Joe, and I were able to socialize with town. And it seemed like everybody was in good spirits. We don't do that enough. It's kind of like family. You only get together for weddings and funerals, and we only get together for retirement. So, I guess we'll have a few parties coming up in the next couple of weeks, but it was nice to be able to socialize. Also, I'd like to congratulate Diane Corey and the Lady Tigers field hockey team. Diane's been coaching this team for over 20 years, and I believe she would say that this is one of her best seasons. They finished second in the Mid-Wachusett division, and that's out of 32 teams. They had a very tight game. The opposing team, she didn't tell me who it was, but they took a couple goals late in the game that kind of put it away for them, but the coaches did take the time to tell the ladies that they were the toughest opponents that they had all season, and this is the best finish for Diane and this team since 2012, since they moved up to Mid-Watch C. Other than that, I believe it's all I have for right now, and we can go to public input. Anybody for public input? Yes, just to state your name and or introduce yourself.
My name's Arlene Martino, and I live at 94 Goldsmith Street. And I'm a Massachusetts political activist for LaRouche PAC. What I want to bring to your attention tonight is the fact that we're not going to survive the coming hyperinflationary breakdown of the whole transatlantic financial system without putting the Glass-Steagall law back in place. Can I have a show of hands? How many have heard of the Glass-Steagall law?
Might have heard of it, but go ahead. You can explain to everybody, so go ahead.
That's the big problem.
Yeah.
Most people do not know what the Glass-Steagall law will do. There are bills sitting in both houses of Congress right now, and if that law is put back into place, it'll take this bailout debt, $700 trillion, off the books of the U.S. government through legal bankruptcy reorganization, return it to Wall Street, free the government to then rebuild the productive base of the economy. Without Glass-Steagall, we basically have no future.
Could you spell that?
Glasssteagall. It was a law put into place by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Entirely separated commercial banking from investment banking, reined in speculators so they couldn't gamble with commercial deposits. Under pressure by Wall Street, it was repealed in 1999. That's given us this predicament. Our Senator Elizabeth Warren last week gave a speech. She actually ran her campaign last year on a pledge to reenact Glass-Steagall, and true to her promise, she's drawn up a Senate bill to complement the H.R. 129 House bill. 7 out of 10 Massachusetts representatives have signed on to it. Our representative, Nikki Songas, is still a holdout. She's got some kind of a mistaken notion that community banks will not be okay if Glass-Steagall goes back into place, when it's actually quite the opposite. Community banks will be just fine. It's the too big to fail institutions that are going to be in big trouble. They'll probably go under, and they may be held for criminal prosecution. What I've got here is I've drafted up a letter to Nikki Songas that I would love to have the board members sign. I can get it to her office in Washington. This is the first of local selectmen's meetings I'm headed to in the area, because I live in Littleton. I'm going to Westford, Chelmsford, etc. I introduced through citizen petition a petition in the State House, which Senator Eldridge introduced for me, and it's about to get a Senate bill, then it's going to go for a vote in the State House. We've got probably half of the states in the country have submitted resolutions to their state. I'll just briefly here read this letter that I'd love to have you sign, or you could write your own.
Well, I think what would be great is if you can provide us more information, give us that letter in Word. I mean, give us a one-page summary, and we can talk about it at an upcoming hearing. Do you have any?
I'd just like to know more about what,
Right.
you know,
About
I don't
Glass-Steagall?
know. Yeah, I don't
One-
know anything
Sure.
about it.
One-page summary. If you can send us a one-page summary in Word or PDF, whatever, and then send us that letter in Word, send it to Jen Gibbons and Keith, and then we can take it from there.
Absolutely.
And then if you have any websites or anything that you want to announce that, where people can
Sure.
get more information on this, or,
That'd be great.
what your group, just real quick, how to contact you if anyone's
We're
interested.
actually the only political action committee that has taken on this battle with Wall Street to reinstate Glass-Steagall. We've actually got Glass-Steagall on the lips of everyone in Capitol Hill, despite the fact that it's not being reported on the popular press. So the chances are pretty good that we're going to get it reinstated. And of course, this president is now very unpopular, so
When is the vote?
oh, it's not been brought to a vote yet. But there are 2 bills in the Senate, 1 bill in the House of Representatives. I'll leave you a copy of Senator Warren's speech that she gave last week. It's sort of interesting, and I will send that, and that's a copy of the
Okay.
draft.
All right, yeah.
And I will send that information to you, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank
Thank
you
you.
for your concern here. All right, here is copies of this. There.
These copies for us?
These are copies for you, and then I only have one copy of the letter, so Marilyn or Keith, want to get it to Jen? Or, then she'll send it in Word, and then you can send it out to us. Okay.
To the big guns.
Anyone else for public input? Okay. Seeing none, we can move on to our 7:15, which is police dispatch communications appointments. I'll move it over to Deputy Chief of Police.
Thank you.
Yes. Excuse me if I get a little confused, because I have two Perrys, and they're both related, believe it or not, and so, but.
Usually we get confused with all the queries.
Yeah.
First, as you know, we put in for the employee review for a dispatch opening for Andrew Perry, leaving, becoming a full-time firefighter, paramedic in Pepperell. I'd like to introduce Nelson Perry, who's working as a full-time communications officer in the town of Harvard. He interviewed with us, with the fire chief, Jeff Patterson, and myself, made it through the process, and I guess I'd like Nelson to get up and introduce himself and any questions of the board. He has all the qualifications, and Harvard is quite similar to Littleton as far as how we dispatch and how we do things, so he's a great fit, as his cousin Andrew was. And I know you saw later in your packet, they were asking Andrew to be brought down from a full-time to a part-time, but we'll address that after Nelson.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, Deputy and Board, I'm always torn with these things because, we know you go through a lengthy process and you bring, candidates to us that you're ready to appoint. I think it's a formality for us to come in here and appoint, so based on your recommendation, I'm ready to appoint, but I'll turn it over to the board if they have any questions. I think, a lot of times you come in here and they're ready to appoint, so it's, I don't think there's any questions that are ever going to be made that are going to say, oh no, here's a red flag, after you've already gone and done your homework. But with that, I'll turn it over to the board, starting with Alex.
Well, I guess I would like to welcome you here.
Thank you.
I hope that you don't come here from Cove Drive during a bad snowstorm, because you won't make it up Cove Drive to get to Littleton. But
It's true.
I'm glad to see you here. I'm just curious, what was your disposition when the Harvard went regional? Did you go with that group, and are you leaving there to come here?
I interviewed a more qualified person, got the job. They saw my resume, took one look at it, and said he has the full-time police academy. He's going to be a police officer. That didn't happen for me, so
Well, you have an impressive resume. Thank you.
thank you.
Anything for this?
I'm sure you're well qualified and we're well screened.
Thank you.
You got a huge commute here, coming from Harvard. What do you think?
Have you been down Cove Drive?
What do you think? What do you think of the bigger town and the stresses of having some more?
It's a step up,
Yeah.
but I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to adapt, and I like to learn. I like to learn new things, and it'd be, eye-opening. I interned in Clinton, so I believe they're a little busier, I think. But, yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be good.
Again, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to make a motion now, or do you want to move on? Do you want to do both of them at the same time?
However you want to do it.
All right, go ahead, then you want to go now, yeah.
Next one, Jennifer Parent. You might remember Jennifer. She's actually a reserve police officer that you appointed previously to the department. She has expressed an interest in coming on as a part-time communications officer also. As you remember back in, I believe it was May or June, we got the authorization to have 4 part-time communications officers. Jennifer would be our 4th. And we're hoping to get her trained, and she also has expressed an interest in the future of taking over a full-time position if one were to open on the desk, which we, as you know, through communication, we are anticipating one could be opening within the next month or so. We've been informed one of our employees may be going to a border community. Okay. So we're hoping that, once she gets through her training and makes that screening, that we'll have someone that can go in to fill the slot rather quickly, because as you know, when the communications desk goes down by one, every shift has to be filled, because, you know, the minimum amount of people to run the control center is 5. So we've been one short for a while, and I'd like to, it's been a year and a half since we've actually been at full strength for any period of time in both police and the dispatch. So with that, Jen Parent.
Okay,
Nice to see you again.
Thank you. Nice to see you, sir.
nice to see you again.
Sir? Thank you.
So again, seeing that there's been no reason in your experience here to not recommend you for the position, I believe the deputy and the chief have done the screening and they're comfortable with your performance. They have a little bit of time under their belt now, so I will go with your recommendation. So best of luck, and I'll turn it over to Alex. Is there anything?
Yeah, what is it that you like about Littleton? What drew you here?
It's a small town. I'm willing to learn anything that's given to me. I didn't really know much of the town when I went through the academy. I applied here and I was given the position of a reserve officer. And dispatch was proposed to me, and I decided to take it because it would make me a better part-time officer as well, knowing both sides.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Moving down the table?
Yeah,
Next
just
to,
a question, as a reserve, have you got some details in town? You got your way around town?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're learning the roads,
Very
yes.
good, very good.
She's been out doing cruiser training.
Oh, nice.
She's one of the first set going through that. With that, Andrew Perry couldn't be here tonight. He was the other person we were moving from full-time to part-time. He's actually working in his firefighter paramedic job in Pepperell. But he was previously the full-time employee who Nelson is replacing, so I'd ask that he also be moved to part-time status. That again leaves us at the 4 part-time communications office, which was authorized by the board.
Okay, so we're going to appoint Jennifer and Andrew Perry as part-time reserve police. Oh, they're already reserve police, but they're going to be part-time reserve police and dispatch communications. And then it's going to be Nelson Perry to full-time.
Yes,
That's right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to appoint Jennifer Parent of Leominster and Andrew Perry of Harvard as part-time reserve/dispatch communications officers.
Seconded?
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to amend its vote on September 30, 2013 to grant the police chief's amended request under the staffing vacancy review policy to fill one full-time benefit police dispatch/communications officer and to appoint Nelson Perry of Harvard to said position.
Seconded?
Okay, before we go further, I expect, Bonnie, if there was any changes in budget or anything like that, we would
We've
have.
already reviewed this previously, and there's no.
Since our amendments, I assume there was, okay, sorry. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Congratulations.
Congratulations, good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Berman.
Thanks very much.
Alex, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.
Deputy?
Good luck.
Thank you again, sir.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.
Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Being that we have a public hearing at 7:30, it's not quite that time. I'm wondering, can we move down to something, Keith, do you want to take anything off of a special town meeting? Or do we want to just, excuse me, jump to minutes? Do you think
Probably minutes.
Okay.
Minutes it is.
Minutes.
So, Mr. Chair, we have 2 sets of minutes here, one for Monday, October 7th, and one for October 21st, Monday. Any issues?
I did not have any. What, October, what about the, did we have to do any for the special town meeting? Or those?
We'll
Okay.
have it, but you don't have those.
Okay, so we just, okay, all right.
So I'd move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve its minutes of Monday, October 7th, 2013.
Seconded?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. I also move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve its minutes of Monday, October 21st, 2013.
Seconded?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very
Just a
much.
quick comment about the minutes. They're really comprehensive. I like them.
I got 7:30.
You got 7:30, got the official time there?
Ready it is.
All
10
right.
seconds, it's gonna be.
Yeah, all right. Being 7:30, I'd like to open the public hearing for the tax classification. Notice of hearing, Board of Selectmen, Town of Littleton, tax classification hearing. The Board of Selectmen in the Town of Littleton will conduct a public hearing under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 56, on Tuesday, November 19th at 7:30 PM in the Selectmen's Hearing Room, Room 103, Littleton Town Offices, 37 Shattuck Street, Littleton, Massachusetts, 01460, on the issue of allocating the local property tax levy among the 5 property classes: residential, open space, commercial, industrial, personal, for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014. Information from the Board of Assessors concerning various policy options will be available for the public inspection on November 14th, 2013 in the Selectman's office and the town's website. All interested persons and/or parties wishing to be heard will be afforded the opportunity to be heard at this time. Littleton Board of Selectmen, Ted P. Doucette, Chair. This was published, please let the minutes reflect that this was published in the Independent on October 31st and November 7th. And Keith, did anybody come by to review give a public inspection of the documents in their office?
Well, I bet if they were looking for them, they found them online, because
Yeah.
they weren't beating down the doors to...
Okay. All right, so most of us have been through this a few times, and I know Jenna has done homework on this and has met with town staff on at least one occasion, possibly more, to gain a understanding of this hearing. And I would like to open it up now to Ken to see if he has any comments or any thoughts. The way this usually goes is that you lay out some options for us, and there's a nice summary page here on page 7, which basically starts from where we are, which would be option 7, and then every change from there, up or down, shifting the tax rate one way or the other is delineated. And then there's also on page 6, which has the full range in, what are these, hundreds? Or
Per 1%.
Yeah.
From the 100 to the 150.
Yeah, right, okay, 1% increments, okay. And noted that the 1.5 is the maximum split that we can have, is that correct?
1.5 is
Okay.
maximum.
And, all right, so I'll let you take it from there then.
Well, thank you. I actually, Fred is the chairman of the board. We also have Jim Winroth, assessor, and Lynn Mason here, representing the board also. But before Fred goes into the actual residential factor, there's a couple other things after we do the residential factor, you also have to take a vote on whether to adopt an open space factor reduction and a small commercial exemption. So certainly the biggest part of the meeting is the residential tax factor, which Fred totally enjoys doing.
Absolutely. And but before I start, as I'm sure you're aware, this is Ken's last classification hearing with us, and I want to thank him for all the work he's provided for us and the support and the enthusiasm with which he attacks his job, which I've never seen in an assessor elsewhere. So I just want to thank him. What we're going to vote down tonight is the residential class factor. You're not going to select a tax rate. The class factor you select will then translate into the tax rate. We've given you a number of examples. We've also provided you so that there's no limitation of all of the possible class factors that you can choose from. And I don't think, to be honest, I think all of you are fairly well versed. I know Jen has been in, so I guess you can just start your discussion. We've tried to also include on this, on the one sample page, an indication of what the actual impact of your decision makes. So you might say, oh, you know what, we're arguing over 2 different class factors, and the impact to the average taxpayer is $7 over the course of the year.
We don't argue, we discuss.
Well, let me rephrase, yes, all right. You see my point. So I think it's in your court now.
Okay. Should we give a little background for anybody here or listening or watching that's not familiar with this? Basically, we have a tax shift in Littleton, and it ranges from 1 to 1.5, the possibilities, and that's shifting tax burden either away or towards commercial, industrial versus
Right, the shift allows you to
residential.
take some of the burden and place it from the residential class onto the commercial class. Originally, when we first instituted the shift, The town values were about 60% residential, 40% commercial. They're now 80% residential, 20% commercial. So it's skewed to the point where there's not a lot of wiggle room as we're up at the higher end of the shift.
Right. So the 1.434304 is where we're at from last year, right? So we can call it 1.43. That's what the shift was last year?
Sure.
Okay, so can you just explain what that shift is? I mean, that means 0.43% moves from residential to commercial?
The commercial, at that point, the commercial class is bearing 1.43% of what their burden would normally be.
Okay.
So their burden can go up to 1.5% of what it would be, and then that's taken off of the residential class burden.
Mr. Chair, last year you voted the shift at .8852, which equaled
okay, yeah.
1.42 based on the commercial industrial values last year.
Okay.
If you vote the same shift this year, because the commercial industrial values have gone down slightly, it will impact it by 1.43 being the shift.
Okay. I
So
see.
even though you vote the same factor,
Yeah.
the same shift, it's a higher factor
Okay.
because of the values. So I know it's confusing.
All right, so for what we have from last year, this number 7, where we're starting from, the residential average tax bill was $6,475, maintaining the same residential, the same factor. That would increase, tax bills are going to increase $253 per year. And then the commercial, industrial, and, let's see, the commercial, industrial, CIP.
Yes, that would go up $648,
Right.
and that's based on a value of $491,000, which may not be the numerical value, but it's kind of a small business equivalent that the boards use.
Okay, so, taxes are going up no matter what, and we're trying to figure out the shift here.
Sorry.
Welcome.
Mr. Chair, if I could chime in?
Yes, yeah.
All right, so the past 3 years, our tax rate has increased by almost 15.1%. So in 11, we went up to 4.8%, 12 it was 4.9, and last year it was 5.4. What I'd like to recommend the board take a look at is shifting from the 1.43 to 1.47. Take a little, that's approximately a 3% increase on our tax rate. A little bit break to the residents, and knowing that some of the commercial activity that's going on in town right now in the coming years, very near future, I think the shift will rebalance itself out, so.
So the residential factor you're suggesting would be .87576 to match the 1.47 CIP factor?
Yes.
Okay. And looking at the, do you want to go over, do you want to state what that means?
We're gonna have a 3% increase in our tax burden,
Versus-
in our tax rate.
Okay.
Is what that means.
Yeah.
Instead of a 4 or better
Okay,
% increase.
okay.
I have a question about the increase is, if it's 4, it's 2.5 plus, right? The 2.5 is what will increase no matter what. Is that correct?
The
2.5
The
plus.
2.5, well, it's not a 2.5% increase in the tax rate, it's a 2.5% increase in the levy. And then that's affected by the different classes, so that.
Yeah. This affects where it goes, but if we say 4, it's 2.5 is expected anyway, and a levy limit.
The levy's going up by what percentage?
It goes up by 2.5 plus growth.
Right, but that, and that's what number? In the aggregate, the levy is going up.
Right, but that number doesn't necessarily correlate to the increase in it.
Right.
Because Jim's talking
Right,
about
and then the
the tax rate itself.
Right, and then
Right.
and then you shift that burden from residential to commercial to some degree.
Right, so we're not raising taxes or changing taxes. The tax has been assessed, we're just shifting who's going to pay for it. Town meeting.
Town meeting has already taken the
Town meeting has already told us how,
Already done.
town meeting tells us how much we have to spend, and we're just divvying up the spending.
Right, the only thing remaining to be done is to determine who pays for what the share is that's paid for the bills that are already been allowed.
And then the unfortunate thing is any changes, because we're already 2 quarters into the fiscal year, anything that we do now has to be made, we have to prorate the previous taxes that we
Well,
should be.
people
is that right?
people get estimated.
Estimated.
Right.
Oh,
For
that's-
the
oh, they're
first two
estimated.
quarters, the actual tax bill that they get in the third quarter will reflect the policy decision you make now.
Yeah.
So the amount that's paid out for the entire year will reflect the policy decisions you make now.
So Jim, you wanted 1.47, is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the 2.95% change in residential tax bill. That's what you're saying, right? That's where we're at? Okay.
Yeah.
Versus.
2.95 and 7.49.
Right, 7.5 for CIP, right. And then versus where we are now is about 4.19. Right? Okay. And that's percent change, that's, all right.
But again, taking into consideration what we know going on commercially, you know, I think,
Yeah,
if we can, and again, this is it's a annual process. We can reevaluate, and the evaluations change every year. Your house goes up a little more than mine, or my house goes a little up more than, the business property goes up. Basically, the tax rate, you can set it, saving the taxpayers a little bit, and
Yeah.
shifting the burden a little bit would be.
So that's a 2.95%
Correct.
increase in the residential
The
tax bill,
residential.
Correct.
and 7.49 for
Correct.
commercial.
versus, yeah. I mean, the tax bills are going up no matter what. This is what Jim's proposal is to try and to minimize that or bring it down a little bit. I mean, my
For
thoughts.
residential.
Residential. My thoughts are, we have we have obviously a couple different classes. I think, property owners are, they pay obviously a large portion of the taxes here, and, they don't have representation at town meeting. I also feel that a lot of these shifts, they help out, but, we're not totally toppling over the apple cart and reinventing everything. It's just, these are, changes, but we're not gonna really make any huge impact. We're just trying to, Change
Every penny helps
Yep.
to our residents.
anybody else?
But we're shifting that on to business.
Correct.
Right, thank you.
So the
Just-
question is, in
Correct.
previous discussions, we discussed, what impact that might have on small businesses. Making the assumption we're not going to do the small business exemption, or whatever the proper term is that you call it. So that's where, that we should be mindful of small business as well as we consider this.
Yeah, it's small businesses and property owners, right. So the other thing I've been concerned about in the past is, and I'm not saying you don't have a valid point, Jim, we're getting closer and closer to that 1.5, and I always felt more comfortable not always, but it's been the last couple of years, is staying a little bit away from that 1.5. But we do have a proposal or a thought on the table to change the residential factor to 0.87576. Is there anybody else who has any thoughts, suggestions?
If I could interject a
Sure.
second, Ted, just in comparing the average CIP tax bill between if you were to choose the last shift versus Jim's proposal, and I'm not making this a subjective now, it's about a $400 difference in the commercial class bill, so it's.
The average bill, yeah.
Yeah, so it's, I don't want to say within, again, I'm not trying to evaluate it, I'm just pointing it out. It's
Yeah.
about a $400 difference in that bill, and for the residential bill, it's probably about $50 or $60 a year.
And that's for a commercial property that's assessed at $491.
Right, the average
Yeah, average,
commercial.
yeah.
So,
Right.
and you know what, let me correct that, it's not the average commercial property, it's the typical. What we did and this started back when Ken Eldridge was on the board, that we threw out IBM and a lot of the properties and looked at the impact it would have on the more local business owners. So that number sort of comes from us reviewing the properties in town and picking, some of the smaller properties that would feel the impact more than a major corporation.
Okay. I know Jimmy Joey just walked in, you have any thoughts?
No, my thought about all these in the past was almost like yours. I didn't want to go any closer to that 1.5, and I didn't want to put any additional great burden on our business friends that's important. But I understand where Jimmy's coming from. We have gone, was it almost like 5, 5, and 5?
Yeah. I said 4.8, 4.9, 5.4. And then this year, under the same CIP would be 4.2? Fine.
So I wouldn't have a problem this year making sure it's just 1 year that we.
And again, taking consideration that, we're gonna get some more commercial online in the very near future. That's gonna balance things back out a little bit here, so.
That won't be a major impact in this particular year.
Not this year at all.
Yeah.
Not this year at all.
What's
Because
up-
we're
what's-
talking about money from June 30th, 2013 to July 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2014.
What's that percentage, as far as what the residential share is and
80/20.
80,
80/20.
is it exactly 80/20?
Approximately, yeah.
So that's actually gone down?
Yes, it used to be 60/40. We used to have 60% residential and 40% commercial, industrial, and personal property. Now we have an 80% residential.
No, but I thought, getting more specific, I thought we had gone all the way up to like 83% on residential.
The
The
commercial.
burden.
Back in 2008, we peaked.
Right.
2007, 2008, you peaked at 83%.
And
For the residential share.
and since then, the residential share is going back down.
It's gone down 81, 79, 78, 78.
All right.
Yeah, 79-21 rounding this year.
Okay.
Well, Ted, you were thinking something further up the scale? Whereabouts were you thinking?
I don't know if I don't think I'm putting other thoughts together. I was just trying to express my thoughts on the two proposals that we have. Well, there's one proposal to have before us for the 1.47 and 1.43. I have my justification for going 1.43. I have, or for, 0.88 versus 0.87. I have justification for both of them. So, I think I'm not against, Jim's thoughts. Let's be wary and try to revisit next year and say, is there any corrections when we see some new growth coming in that we can do?
We'll do it every year.
So, Mr. Vanoni, as you speak as treasurer, yeah.
Just a couple of points of clarification, just
Okay.
to kind of bring things in perspective. The shift that you voted last year, that .8852, right, that factor, came out to a CIP of 1.41 in change, okay? Doing that same .8852, you can see it raised it by 2% to 143. So you have that same danger with that 147, because values are going to change, that you could possibly be bumping up against the 150 without doing anything. Because don't forget, values are set as of January 1st. Not January 1st a year from now, January 1st a couple of months from now. Things aren't changing that much between now and January 1st. So this big bump in values isn't really going to happen until the following year. So you really have to be careful, because you're going to be bumping up against that 150, and there's no place to go after that, except all on the residential. So you may be giving the person a break for the 1 year, but you could be pounding them next year.
Well, let's hope the economy, Steve. I mean, you're making assumptions
But the
that
values-
we're gonna be
the
tanking
values are
still.
set.
So, I mean, you're right.
It's based on what
Maybe the
steel
assessors
is.
can talk about
I got
what's
that, I
happened.
get that, I get that.
What's happened since last January to this January with commercial properties, Ken?
Yeah, we haven't had a lot of growth. I mean, we do have the point coming, but that's a little bit of, a lot of infrastructure, and a lot of steel erect, but it doesn't translate directly into value until you get, we're going to be able to take a portion of it, but not as much as we'd like to until they become occupancy permits are granted, and that's when we can really capture the growth there.
So can I interrupt?
What about the other commercial properties?
So to Steve, oh, good.
No, the other
On
commercials?
Gloucester Street and those types of things. Are they full?
No. The other commercials, the adjustments have been made on those, so we expect that to be level.
But your adjustments, right, your adjustments were done as of last January, nothing's really changed this
Right.
January.
Right.
Okay, so it's stagnant.
So to Steve's point about we assess in January, our property values are set in January, basically, we could have the point fully construct next year, and we wouldn't, and when we're sitting here a year from now doing this, that won't even be considered until a couple months, a year and a couple months from now. So,
I'm sorry.
yeah.
You know, you got FEMA technologies that come in and taking over the old
Yeah.
Sandville building, you know? We have significant improvements there too, so. But again, I understand that it's gonna be this January, I get that, for that evaluation to be done.
It's just and, you know, giving the residential taxpayer a break is great, but you don't want to put them in a position where you're gonna have no place to go in a year. Just
I get-
keep that into consideration, that's all.
So what happens when we get to the 1.5 then? And
You can't shift anymore.
you can't shift anymore, so
So whatever the percentage, so whatever the levy goes up is the amount by which their tax bills go up, and you can't shift it. There's no room left to shift.
So if there's another bad
So
year
if
with not a lot
someone-
of
So if
growth.
someone is only looking at the comparison of the prior year to the current year, and not looking back the year before that, and say, oh, great, my taxes didn't go up as much, say, this year compared to last, but next year, if we're up against the 1.5, then they will go up by whatever amount the levy goes up, if the values on the commercial side don't go up as much as we'd like them to.
I think that's why I sort of, I understand where Jim wants to go, and I wish we could do it, and I wish we could make it stick. And so I would sort of lean to something a little more moderate, where we had a little room to work if we had to.
Still got a little room to work. It's 0.3%. From 4.3 to 4.7.
But it sounds like what Steve is saying is that if we, and what Keith is, well, everybody's saying, is if we run up against the 1.5 and we have circumstances such that the residential taxpayer bill is going to go up, we have no way to help. We're giving them a one-shot deal. And I prefer something sustainable. Over a period of time, they can take the highs and the lows, and we have room to work.
1.47 is now 1.50.
Yeah.
And, the evaluations that we go through in this process, we do every 12 months.
I would like to say that it seems to me the only way to get around taxes increasing in large part is relative to the spending that we have. So we are backfilling what choices were made at our annual town meeting. And we're coming off of a full day of joint budget planning that we had this past Saturday, where all the departments came before us and spoke to us about what they believed their identified needs were. So to my mind, it makes sense for us to do this on both ends, not just tonight with shifting the burden from commercial, industrial, and personal, between that and the residents. It's also about thinking how we're going to spend the money that we ask from taxpayers.
Oh, thank you, because that's a great segue into the 8:45 agenda item where we're going to talk budget priorities.
Yes, I see that.
Thank you for that. But you're right, it's the spending, not the shift that raises taxes.
I can just throw out one other number. I just did some quick MLS research, and the average sale price in town for 2012 was $377, and through today for this year is $422. So you're going to see, And I realize that the commercial increase will be significant when we do get that, but you're gonna see a bump in residential values probably next year as a result, which is
Which
gonna
will be a-
offset what kind of commercial increases you have, which, to Steve's point, is gonna push us closer to the maximum
Yeah.
shift.
Well, and I get it, what I've said, I've always liked to, I'd like to see these two closer together, and that means that at some point, you're gonna have to raise residential rate and basically raise taxes. We're not raising taxes, but whatever, yeah, we're not raising taxes here, but we're shifting, we have to shift more to residents if we wanna get those numbers closer together. So bringing them apart is more, it's not consistent with my goal or my thoughts that they should be closer. But that's just one person's thoughts, so,
I believe we agree,
yeah.
by the way.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I agree, we agree. So, if there's any motions, unless there's any conversation, we go to motions.
I'll make my motion. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 56 as follows, relative to the fiscal year 2014 property tax, to establish a residential factor of .87576.
Second.
Okay, a motion been made and seconded to establish a residential factor of 0.87576. Is there any further discussion? Can I sit and think about it for a couple more minutes? I don't think talk about it a couple more minutes so I can think about it. All right, motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Unanimous. We have to move on now to adopt or not adopt a residential exemption. Can we get a quick 10 seconds on that?
Sure.
And this is residential and small business, if you want to go cover both at the same time.
Okay. The residential exemption is, works well in communities where you have people that own residential properties but are not residents. And the shift stays within the class, but it grants relief to the resident. Works well on Nantucket, but I guess it works well. I don't have
Used to work
first-hand
well.
experience.
It worked well when I was a resident, so.
But in Littleton, chances
as
are,
bad.
if you own a residential property, you're living in it.
Okay.
So the relief you'd be granting to the, the 3 or 4 people or I don't know how many actually, that don't live here, would be, the burden would be placed on to give, and so the relief would not be great to the owner occupier. So it doesn't make sense.
It drives up the tax bill on a rental property, too, because it's not occupied by the owner.
All right.
Yeah.
How about small business?
Yeah, small business is, and there again, it's difficult in that it sounds wonderful, everybody's in favor of small business, but the actual application, it's applied to a property with an assessed value of less than $1 million and fewer than 10 employees. And the benefit of that is to that group paid by the other commercial properties that are greater than $1 million. So it doesn't take into account the profitability of the business. And usually when we look at exemptions, we try to measure need or something like that. And this does not seem to lend it, because some small businesses are very sound, whereas some larger businesses which would be paying a premium may not be as sound financially. So it doesn't lend itself, or it never has. The board, in the 20 years that they've been voting, has never voted it.
Okay.
Ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I am.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to not adopt the residential exemption and not to adopt the small business exemption.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, unanimous. And how about do we have a value for the unused property tax levy?
We do. It's $12,841.52.
Any discussion on that?
Ready?
Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen to identify $12,841.52 in unused property tax levy capacity.
Excuse me.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank
That
you
was-
very much,
yeah.
Ken, this is your last time. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Did you give us a recommendation this year?
It was wonderful, it was heartfelt, very nice.
Did you give us a recommendation? Like you
No,
said?
no,
no,
no.
he still didn't do it. He still
The last time I ever do it, you're not gonna do it?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much,
Enjoy your
Sharon.
retirement.
Thanks for all your
Take
knowledge.
off the joint now?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, assessors.
Thank you, assessors.
Bonnie.
All right.
All right, so, that's great, right on schedule. Joe, as long as Jenna's out for just a minute, did you have anything that you want to add for your member updates? Sorry to put you on the spot, but I didn't know if you had any thoughts on
Yeah, there's a parade
300 or
coming. How's the
anything.
parade coming?
Yeah.
Updating the parade. As of right now, I think we have 28 committed bands of different places. So I'm watching you, it's not counting floats, it's not counting other things. We do have a tank that's gonna be in and a half track that's gonna be in the parade, so we're still going over some of the other things. But like everything else, we have to watch our budget now too, because some of these bands do not come cheap.
Yeah.
And we were missing some of our members at the meeting that wanted to ask some questions.
Joe, I've been asked by folks if they see the Memorial Day parade, if they have a vehicle or something, can they contact somebody on the
If they have a
parade?
vehicle, they should contact David Badger. He's in
Okay.
charge of all the vehicles.
Okay.
He'd love to hear, because he's talked to so many people, and people with antique cars or special cars normally don't make a commitment until they know what the weather is, which you can understand.
Yeah, right.
So he's been having that problem getting some of that nailed down.
So it's David Badger.
David Badger's
Very
in
good.
charge of that spot.
Okay. And how was the update meeting the other night? I'm sorry I had to miss that because I had another work
No,
commitment.
That went very, very well. It's a lot of people that are working very hard, but the opening ceremony, that's basically nailed down. That committee's been doing a lot of work, and they explained it's gonna take place at the middle school and the high school area, not the middle school and Russell Street. We're gonna have a breakfast that the Rotary's gonna help put on. The time capsule from 50 years ago will be on exhibit, what was in that. Hopefully, we have some dignitaries come. That my job was to get some of those, and you can't get commitments from those people right now. The governor's office and Senator Warren's office was nice enough to answer me and say, get back to me later on. And Eldridge and Asiero, they've already said
Oh,
yes. But all the other ones, I never even got a response from them. And the ball's on target. Some interesting news. I mean, they want to make the ball self-sufficient, but if somebody really can't afford the price of the tickets, then they're going to try to work with those people too, so it's accessible to everybody.
Yeah.
The picnic is going to be an old-fashioned picnic in the middle of July. There won't be any hot dog stands or anything else. It'll be more like a real picnic with certain old-time things going on. Fireworks will be the same night as the parade. So there's a lot. And beyond that, there's other things being planned by private entities that maybe a bike race or that type of thing that's going to be taking place. So we're getting there.
That's good, good. And Apple Smash was a success?
Yes, it was well run too. It was a very nice time.
Yeah, that was a good time. Okay, so now we have a few items that we have to clean up or just follow through with from the November 4th special town meeting. So there was a sidewalk easement that needs to be signed and voted on by the selectmen. Keith, is that
Yes,
basically it?
the town meeting authorized the selectmen to accept an easement, so town council has prescribed the form of this vote for you to vote to do so.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to accept as a gift the sidewalk easement from Littleton Office Center Associates LLP shown as proposed permanent easement for sidewalk proposals, area equals 75 square feet plus or minus. On the plan entitled The Plan of Land, Town of Littleton, Permanent Easement, Russell Street at Great Road, prepared by Green International Affiliates, Inc., dated January 21, 2013, as authorized by the vote taken on Article 7, November 4th, special town meeting.
Seconded.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Imagine there's some paperwork coming around for that?
Well, we'll use the minutes of your vote.
We don't have to sign
And
anything?
and that will get filed with the easement document.
Okay, all right, I thought I knew what to say. All right. Next one is, again, another one here, that we have a town meeting article, special town meeting article 9, where we're going to accept cemetery land is gonna go to the Conservation Commission, and we have to do that?
Yes, and this one, there will be a document that will require your signatures, and Bonnie will notarize. The conservation, the cemetery commissioners voted on Monday morning to approve the deed. The Conservation Commission voted on Monday evening to approve the deed, and tonight you vote to approve what they did.
Approve the approval.
Approve the approval.
Okay.
Ready then, Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 8C, and as authorized by the Article 9 of November 4, 2013 special town meeting to approve the acceptance by the Conservation Commission of the gift of land from the Cemetery Commission described as Conservation Restriction Area in a certain plan, land entitled Plan of Land in Littleton, Massachusetts, Middlesex County for West Lawn Cemetery prepared by Stamsky and McNarty, Inc., dated August 10, 2011, and further certify that at the meeting duly held on November 18, 2013, the Conservation Commission voted to approve the conveyance of said parcel for sole purpose of conservation natural resources, including, but not limited to, the conservation of species listed pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131A, subsection A, ET sequence, which shall be considered the most important conservation purpose for which this land is to be protected in perpetuity, and being in the public interest pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, subsection 8C.
You have a great grasp of the issue there. We got, sometimes, we do have to point out to Keith, making things easier here with those things, as easy as possible, so.
Unfortunately, not only did town council insist on this language, but Natural Habitat insisted on it, so there was no way around it, except to say so moved.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, and another one here is that we are going to, this is the authorization of the upgrades that were voted on at special town meeting.
And we have the deputy chief to tell us what we're going to spend our money on.
Good evening.
How are you? Good evening.
Jim, did you do all of those in one breath? I was just curious about that, listening from the back.
I had a couple. I had a couple of
all
these.
right.
Thank you, though, Steve.
All right. I was going to say congratulations if it was. We're here tonight on behalf of both the police and fire department to look for the approval of the Board of Selectmen to move forward on the quotes that you'll find in your packet under the state FIR 03 contract for the point-to-point microwave system for public safety. This system was voted on at the special town meeting back at the beginning of the month. And following that, we moved forward with Cyber Communications out of Woburn, Mass., who we've used for numerous other projects, including the police station, all the infrastructure for that, as well as our UHF system that was approved back in the Springtown meeting. The quote came back at $105,048.38. Originally, we had budgeted $120,000 for it. We were able to work with them to get that number down to a more reasonable amount. Originally, we talked to a couple vendors. They were thinking 115 to 120. Therefore, we went with the 120 for town meeting, and fortunately, we were able to save a little bit of money here. That said, there is some additional costs that will occur, just small things such as an electrician to do the power hookup, which should be relatively minor costs once we have the meter in place that the light department has agreed to provide for us.
Okay, so you say you talked to some vendors before town meeting, and was there only one bid received?
It's off the state bid list.
Oh, state bid list,
Yeah.
okay, all right, sorry. Yep,
Yeah, we
okay.
talked to the
Yep.
multiple vendors before town meeting, just
Okay.
to get a sense of where we were gonna be. And again, Cyber Communications is a company that the police and fire department are very familiar with, very comfortable with, and have a good working relationship.
Great, okay. And $15,000 come back as free cash sometime next year?
We'll
Certain?
have to modify the vote.
Oh, you want to vote, okay. All right.
I only have one comment, and dealing with these contracts a lot. The early payment discount or the dock delivery discount means communication between you guys are real good, because you can save some dough, you know, up to 3% on that, on the dock delivery. It's good money, so you guys can make that decision, but just pay attention to the early payment discounts and save the town a little bit of dough, as you already
That's what
did,
we're
by the
trying
way.
to do.
You already did, good job. Ready for a motion?
Yes.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the procurement of a microwave radio system for Cyber Communication Sales Inc. of Woburn in the amount of $105,048.38 under state bid contract FIR 03 Fire/EMS.
Second?
Excuse me, the motion been made and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Nice job,
A
guys.
long time problem, finally fixed.
I know. Not yet, not until we
Well, it will.
actually have it up and working.
All right.
So much.
So, now moving on to a couple items you have here, there's a contract extension for the Onyx Corporation for the work they're doing on the Route 119. Could you just,
Yeah, we had hoped to be able to bring some change orders forward tonight, but we're gonna do those in December.
Hopefully
We hope,
December.
yeah. But one thing that we would like to do in the meantime, and by the way, when we do bring those change orders forward, we would also bring forward additional money from Sam Parks Company, because the town has expended $0 of its own funds towards the project. It's either been the $1.8 million MassWorks grant, or it's been the remainder of over another $1 million that has come from Sam for the work. What we do need to do, though, is to extend the contract period now through May 30th, as has been requested by the contractor. We will be back, though, before the end of the year with more work on this contract, including change orders.
all right, and Jim, this letter's addressed to you. Do you have anything to add? The request? Okay. And it's just normal construction delays, people not coordinating, stuff not coming in at the right time, things like that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's mostly subcontractors that kind of caused it.
Okay.
Will they be taking out all the barrels and stuff that along the road?
No.
They will remain during the winter time?
They'll be pushed further to the edge.
By the plows.
It's not completed yet, so it's,
And the main hangup there has been the utility poles, not because of Littleton Electric, but
yeah.
because of the other utilities, so.
All right, I think we're ready.
Move that the Board of Select, I'm on a roll, huh? All right. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to extend through May 30, 2014, the contract with Onyx Corporation of Acton, Mass. for the MassWorks Route 119 Great Road I-495 Interchange Traffic Mitigation Project, authorized by the Board of Selectmen's vote of May 14, 2012.
Second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, now, this one's a little bit complex. Keith, you explained to me earlier that we have a traffic study or a parking study that needs to be done at the commuter rail. It's the Montezuma Area Regional Transit Authority is going to do the study, but we have to get the grant
State's
for
gonna pay
them.
for it.
and-
Yeah, it sort of, it sort of
Thanks, Jim.
reflects
Thanks, Jim.
the complicated partnership that exists between the town and the state and our regional transit authorities. Let me back up. A couple of years ago, when the Littleton commuter rail station project was being unveiled, we saw in the plans that there was no provision for public parking at all. And as a community, as a town, we took exception to that, didn't want to see it constructed without there being public parking spaces adjacent to it. So this board voted to advocate and request that the state or federal government find $2 million to be able to add 200 spaces. And Secretary Greg Bielecki came through that the state in 2011 did award $2 million, not to the town, but to the MBTA, to be able to acquire that portion of the Nordblum property on which there are now 200 parking spaces. This past June, we dedicated the newly reconstructed Littleton commuter rail station. There are continuing improvements along the Fitchburg line, which will be completed by 2015 if things go to schedule. That includes the dual tracking of the entire length of the Fitchburg line. It includes signalization improvements up and down the line. We are told that once those improvements are in place, that we will see additional service. We will see an expanded schedule for Littleton Station. Specifically the 4 trips, there are 4 trips per day that come out from Boston and make as far as South Acton and then turn around and head back to the city. Those 4 outbound trips, as well as another 4, or inbound rather, as well as another 4 outbound, will come one more stop from South Acton to Littleton. So we will see an enhanced service schedule if things go as planned. For the last couple of months, I've been getting inquiries from state government, from the MBTA, about the fact that these 200 spaces are, being fairly well utilized. And when we've inquired, well, what's the next step? How do you even begin to look at whether they would construct more? If so, where would they go? Would they be? Would it be a parking garage? Would it be other property that would be acquired for surface level parking? What would the traffic configurations? What mitigation would the project bring? The way that those issues get addressed, we are told, is by having our regional transit authority, MART, the Montechusett Regional Transit Authority, conduct a parking needs feasibility study. In some communities, such projects would be, if they wanted them so badly, might even be funded by the town. Well, when that was not anything that I was offering. When I pursued it to find out what steps do we follow, MART came back with a proposal which is attached here. They've given it an initial price tag of $125,000 for the study. Upon receiving that, my first question to MBTA and to the state was, who's going to pay for that? And Senator Eldridge's office came back right away and said that he talked to Secretary Bielecki, and that if we could get a request in, that the state would very likely look favorably upon it. Secretary Bielecki had also suggested that the request go to the Transportation Secretary, Rich Davey, and to the MBTA. I happened to be at a transportation workshop last week that MAPC was running, and I did mention it to Secretary Davey. I said we were very likely going to ask him for 125, and he stopped me and said million, and I said 1,000, and he seemed much relieved. But that in order to get the ball rolling, in order to even be able to look at what what it would take to add a parking, the first step is the study, and we can manage that study as it happens. We will be a big part of it and be able to interact with it. But the first step is to get the study going. And I would think that in our partnership with the state, that if there were to be additional parking, I think that the station would be viewed as being even more valuable to the system. And we are, after all, trying to get enhanced service. We're trying to get an increased schedule out here. But I haven't had many, but I've had a few emails or tweets or whatever asking me when, hey, I can't get a parking space. When are you guys gonna look at additional parking? So it's, we're approaching that point. I'd say crunch time might come by, 2015 or something, when we will be looking for the state to give us the additional service that they want. And it would be well to at least have them have a study that indicates how are we going to address parking issues. So.
Any questions?
Just one comment, Mr. Chair. That would be the MBTA committee. You think this would be appropriate to reconvene and get those folks involved, especially where a lot are on Foster Street?
We would certainly have the MBTA committee very involved along with the staff on the study itself. And that is the role that we had carved out for the committee to have, and back when we were advocating for the funds for the parking, and the committee has continued to express interest in providing feedback. So I think if the study goes forward, that they would be an integral part of that process representing the town.
Okay.
It sounds like, if we don't undertake something like this, we're gonna be back where we were before we had this latest round of parking, where everybody's hunting, trying to find a place to park, and there aren't adequate parking places. So it seems to integrate kind of nicely.
Well, that end will, hope, like you said, become a more important station, get more service, be more likely to get more service, so it's like twofold.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to submit to the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, the Secretary CEO of Mass DOT, and the MBT General Manager, and MassDOT Rail Transit Administrator, a funding request for the Montechusett Regional Transit Authority, MART, to be able to conduct a parking needs feasibility study for Littleton MBTA commuter rail station, and to request the support of our state legislative delegation thereof. Therefore.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Keith, what's the schedule for that, do you think? So you write the grant in the next couple of weeks or months or whatever?
Hard to say. I mean, I'll get the request out tomorrow,
Oh.
and my guess is that we'll see a quick turnaround, if for no other reason, because the people that are
Giving the
give us
money
the money
or telling you to ask for
are
it,
only
yeah.
going to be in office for another year, so.
Okay.
That town should ask for $125 million.
Next, yeah. Along with the direct access off of the highway.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're all set.
While the 495 project's going on, that would be a nice little, oh, by the way, PSSS.
By the way.
A couple of ramps there.
Yeah, PSSSSSS.
Yeah.
You're doing all these bridges on 495, get us access off it.
All right, Community Innovation Challenge Grant. This sounds familiar, Keith, right?
Yeah, we've got a couple of these tonight. This Friday is the deadline for the CIC grant program. We've been asked to participate in two regional applications. The first has been drafted by our partner, the town of Acton, for the Crosstown Connect Transportation Management Association initiative. That the CIC grant has funded our initiative twice before. Back in round one, we received $184,000. We, the five towns. Last year in round two, what grew to 7 towns, received $60,000. And the request this year is more modest. I'm just trying to see what the final number was that they hit on. To request $40,000 to continue the project. So we've signed on to the intermunicipal agreement with our fellow communities, and we're committed to the project, and this is another chance for state funding.
Questions?
Okay, sure. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to join the town of Acton as lead committee in submitting Route 3, and Round 3 application of the Community Innovation Act, CIC, grant program to continue the Crosstown Connect project for the towns of Acton, Boxborough, Concord, Littleton, Maynard, Stowe, and Westford.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And another one. This is a
The second one,
stormwater collaborative.
yeah, the second one we received is from the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, where a number of the communities that are in that regional planning agency have undertaken a Northern Middlesex Stormwater Collaborative, and we've been invited to participate in that project. I ran it by Savastanos, who pointed out that it makes sense for us to be involved in this, as it links other towns in the Merrimack River watershed basin. We are already in a another stormwater collaborative, but it would make sense, since we're in two basins, it would make sense for us to be involved with both.
Water's a very important commodity.
Well, stormwater's big these days. I know it may sound like something esoteric out there, but it's really big, especially in Charles River Basin, and we're in the, which one are we in, Nashville? It's, you know.
Motion?
Board stuff, I think, yep.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to join the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, NNCOG, and submitting a round 3 application under the Community Innovation Challenge CIC grant program to expand the Northern Middlesex Stormwater Collaborative, which currently includes the municipalities of Barica, Chelmsford, Drake, Dunstable, Lowell, Pepperell, and Tewksbury.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, and now we have a gift acceptance to fund the wellness coordinator.
Yeah, there was a $5,000 donation made to the Council on Aging with no restrictions on what the use might be, and the Director of Elder and Human Services brought to the COA the idea that the funds be used to complement the funding for the, right now, grant-funded position of wellness coordinator. It would allow us to keep the position on for a little longer, and so the COA has voted to request that the funds be used for that purpose.
Questions, discussion?
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 53A, to establish a special gift fund account, the proceeds for which shall be used without further appropriation by the Director of Elder and Human Services to fund additional hours to grant for the grant-funded position of wellness coordinator, and to receive a gift of $5,000 from the John C. Morrison and Eunice B. Morrison Charitable Foundation for this purpose, as requested by the Council on Aging.
Second it.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All right, so now the last item here is something that I wanted to put on the agenda. FinCom is frequently, or every year, they're looking for some direction or some thoughts from us on what our budget priorities are. In past years, we've looked at budgets. I think the first year I was here, there was even actual, there was an override option. Then there's usually level staffing, level funding options, things like that. And this year we find ourselves at 2 different options, I believe, based on what we saw Saturday, where there's a lot of level staffing or mission staffing, where the obviously level staffing was to keep the status quo as far as staff and hours, and then the mission was, if we want to do, if we want to try to do a better job, if we can't afford it, this is what we would like. So I think we should give some sort of direction. I think we also need to meet with our boards at an upcoming meeting, which would be the police, fire, and highway, to discuss their budgets in more depth. But I think we should send some signal in the form of memo to the FinCom saying what our priorities are. Some of the ideas that I threw out there would be, obviously override's not on the table, but we should still make that statement that, that's not, if we feel it's necessary, we should make that statement that that's not something we want looked at this year. My opinion is that we should try to stick with level staffing. I don't think we're out of the woods yet. And, I think we've been providing adequate service. I haven't heard any large complaints. I haven't heard anything negative. So I think level staffing is where we would be. We obviously need to look at our boards individually and see if police, we want to go to their mission 17, mission 18, things like that. And that recommendation will be further coming from us. And then for fire, we have to look at, they have staffing proposals as well. And then highway, we can look at them. And I wonder if there's any talk about how we distribute the cap plan. And I don't know if you have a list of all the priorities yet for us, Bonnie?
I was talking with Keith this week, and what I was going to do is summarize, based on our meeting on Saturday, by function. So general government, what are the difference between the level staffing and the mission budgets? Just so you could see, what the increases are in staffing and in dollar amounts. And again, by public safety and education and so on. I'd like to have that to you. I'm working on it now. I'll probably have it to you tomorrow. And then you can start looking at it and going from there. Capital I'll also have to at the same time. It's going to be a large request for capital this year, so
Yeah, there were a few percent. So we could wait until we have that document to make any recommendation, or I think,
I think it would help you.
yeah. Well, with that,
Well, I think maybe some of the stuff we can agree on, like, I don't think any one of us wants an override.
right.
And perhaps a discussion of any debt exclusion. I don't know if the finance committee's discussed that at all, but having it have to be, something that is established high priority only at this point.
Right.
Love that idea, but no debt exclusion. Do it within the levy. I love that idea.
I sat there through the whole thing. I was only going to be able to be there for a couple hours, and I realized how valuable it was going to be to listen to everything that everybody said and the discussion of the mission budget and all that stuff, and I thought it was really interesting. There's a few things that struck me as important needs, and and one of them was not even brought up, but so I'd like us to consider it, and that is to make an adjustment in the tax work-off program for the elderly that matches what their tax increase will be. And also, the other thing that I felt was compelling, it was a safety issue that needs to be dealt with, is the kitchen. And that's not a big ticket item, but it's, that came out pretty compelling. I was really surprised at how gracious all of the department heads were and all this stuff, and they were very, they weren't elaborating and jockeying for position. They were presenting their case, and they were really honest about what they could live with and what they couldn't live with. I was quite impressed with it. But, I don't know if, I think the document that Bonnie would like to produce is going to be pretty helpful in trying to cull through that.
Yeah.
I guess I would like to know what people think about, do we make a general decision about mission budget versus level staffing, or do we take it on a case-by-case basis per department?
Well, it's hard because I was thinking, level staff, but then I started talking about two of our departments that have, mission budgets with additional staff. So it's we gotta walk the walk, I think, whatever we do. Or certainly find a way to justify it. But if we're gonna be telling all other departments to, level staff, we better go through and do our best at walk the walk. So, maybe it's better to see the impact of all those decisions first. And if Bonnie produces a document that she says she is, then it might be easier to do that.
I think it was pretty clear, though, that if we went to the mission budget, that we were going to chew up all available funds very quickly.
Well, we may chew them up before we get there.
Yeah, I just plugged in both budget scenarios now, and with the mission budget, it's just over $1 million in deficit.
What about level?
Without them?
I think about a $200,000 deficit.
Yeah, see, so we're not even in balance for the
So
currently
includes the
level
school?
funded budget. And that's
The
assuming the
mission
school.
budget assumes the school at the $500,000.
Yeah, so if the school comes up
2.5.
with something higher, then the budget gap is bigger. So-
I mean,
What's
that's, they're in the middle of negotiation to start in that process too, so very leery as
But,
to.
but overall, it doesn't paint a picture where we have a lot of disposable income to be able to be adding staffing. It's that even to maintain the staffing level we have right now, we're challenged to.
We're in a deficit.
We're
yeah.
challenged to plug a hole of a couple of 100,000, even to get there, so.
So do we want to look at level funding then this year again?
I'm aiming for level funding at this point.
Okay, because the difference between level funding and level staffing.
I'm sorry, level staff.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. Do we have to jump back to level funding?
I think it's very early in the process, and I've got conservative estimates on state aid, so I'd like to, focus on the level staffing at this point. but-
Would it be possible to see that as an impact? Is that 50% more work?
No. Just copy paste.
It sounds
It'd be nice to see it, I think. It's just so we know what we're not getting. Or what we're getting, yeah.
It sounds though, we can take pretty much the mission budget off the table at this point, and people can stop planning for that.
Why don't we make a decision when we see the whole package together, I think.
Yeah, I think we're gonna get there, and I think that's the way I'm leaning, but I think I think it's in our best interest to see everything first. I did want to get this on here tonight, because I wanted to be proactive on this, but to have great information to better make that decision, I think it's worthwhile. So, Alex, I think I'm leaning in the same direction, but I think
I just say that because, 11 years as a department head preparing 3 or 4 different
Yeah,
levels of budget every year, a lot of work. So if we're not going to get there, they probably should know, they don't have to spend a lot of time on that.
Right. Yeah, all right. So let's get that on for, what are we looking at, Keith? December 16th, is that our next meeting?
We meet on the 2nd
Oh,
and
the
the
2nd,
16th.
2nd and 16th.
Yeah.
All right, so
We could, if you wanted to, we could have some departments come in on the 2nd and others on the 16th.
So-
I'd like to have that discussion prior to anybody showing up about,
Okay.
let's take a look at what,
So
Yeah.
Bonnie's
We know,
budget update
and then
on the
have them
2nd,
come in
and
and
then we'll
pitch there.
start having departments on the 16th.
yeah.
16th or January 1st? I mean, what else, how much do we have on the 16th so far?
Not much. Probably the land acquisition.
Because we have our holiday party that night, so, the selectmen's party that night.
Well, Santa comes that thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Are you serious?
Well, if we need to reschedule.
Yeah, it's always
it
the,
Well, if we need to schedule it to another.
the juniors,
All kinds of reasons you can't meet on a Monday.
the junior selectman has
Could
to
do it
dress up.
Tuesday.
What kind of outfit are you suggesting?
Santa themed.
Santa theme, excellent.
It used to be the day the selectmen all hosted all the town employees.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'd like to do
Would
that.
take about 2 months of my salary.
Yeah.
Bonnie, a very general question. For the whole town, what's our general total levy right now?
About 26 million.
I mean, we have it on this thing from the Board of Assessors, it says 29 million. Would that be?
Well, that's with the debt exclusions. Easier if I open this up. Okay. Yeah, our levy limit this year is 26,069,000.
What's the driving, this is a very general question, because when you take a look at some of our facts, and it's hard for townspeople, myself included, we look back 10, 15 years ago, and what the total levy was then as compared to now, what's the driving force that makes it skyrocket so much?
We have a fair amount of debt exclusions that add to the levy limit that you can assess for debt service. And that's about, well, it was about 4 million last year.
In years of double-digit group health increases.
Correct. New growth, obviously, the levy limit increases by 2.5% plus whatever new growth comes on. So in the years where in the 80s and 90s, when you had a lot of new business and new housing, that adds to the levy limit.
I have to say, these boring, quiet meetings are nice once in a while, huh?
Yeah, nice, perfect.
And I do, I know I scooted out on Saturday a couple times, so I want to thank you guys all for your dedication. I think it was great. I know you guys all made some sacrifices.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I need your signature.
Early.
You have to
And-
already go, Joe?
I painted my blouse.